Ghost hunting is such a popular pastime at the moment. Every man and his dog is picking up a K2 meter, an EVP recorder, a torch, entering a derelict building and calling out for proof of the afterlife. What I want to know is, where did it start? What's the true history of paranormal investigation? How far back does it stem? And what makes it so popular?
The earliest record we can find regarding any type of parapsychology experiment, it took place in 600 BC and involved Croesus, the king of Lydia. Oracles and prophesiers would go into trance and results would be interpreted by priests. He contacted Herodotus, a very well-known scientist and philosopher, often referred to as the father of history. He wished to test the ability of several different oracles. He intended that he would participate in a certain activity a great distance away from the oracles. He then wanted these oracles to tell what he was actually doing at that moment in time. Two of the oracles actually gave the following prediction. I can smell burning tortoise and burning lamb. I feel sand beneath my feet. Ironically, Herodotus was cooking tortoise cubes and lamb cubes on a beach, thus being the first successful parapsychology experiment.
So the next part of the story takes us to Stockholm back in 1688. Emanuel Swedenborg was born. Now Emanuel was a renowned scientist and philosopher, but later on in his life he started to give clairvoyancy claims, and he offered some really insightful predictions. Later on in his life, all this was ridiculed. But was it a cover-up?
Born on the 20th of January 1688 in Stockholm, a renowned scientist, engineer and philosopher, Emanuel Swedenborg. Now Swedenborg always shows an intense interest in the afterlife claims and the claims of ESP. But in 1740 he started claiming the abilities of clairvoyancy, and then in 1743 started writing several books including Heaven and Hell, Divine Love and Wisdom, Divine Providence and True Christians. He also made very controversial claims that the Bible should not be taken literally. He then took it further by writing a book called The Secrets of Heaven. At this point, Swedenborg was a practical clairvoyant. This was shown in 1756. Whilst attending a dinner party almost 400 kilometres away in Gothenburg, he started describing a roaring fire close to his home in Stockholm. He stated the fire will destroy lots of buildings, but will stop 3 buildings away from his home. 2 days later, men arrived from Stockholm with the news of a fire in Stockholm, and it stopped 3 buildings away from Swedenborg's premises. In 1763, Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher, wanted to test these claims, so he sent his English friend Joseph Green, who was an English investigator. In Green's personal journal, there are notes of success and that he could not debunk Swedenborg's claims. But Immanuel Kant and Green wrote a book ridiculing Swedenborg's abilities. So was this all a cover-up? Maybe to dismiss Swedenborg's claim as that it defied the current theories in science? Swedenborg gave one final prediction. He stated, the 19th of March 1772, I will die of blood poisoning. And when this day arrived, he was correct. No matter what opinions people have on Swedenborg, he truly planted the seed of paranormal and psychic claims and investigations. And this was much earlier than the Fox sisters.
So the next part of our story Caesar's in Hyattville, New York in 1848. And it's probably the most famous story of them all. It is the birth of spiritualism and the two sisters, Kate and Maggie. Now, still to this day, there's a lot of speculation about the truth of their authenticity due to the statement that Maggie made, which you'll see shortly.
In early 1848, the Fox family, with daughters Kate and Maggie, moved to a new premises in Hyattsville, New York. On the 31st of March, Maggie and Kate Fox were sleeping in the same bedroom, and they claimed to experience noises. And this continued for some years. Eventually, they worked out a code and system to interpret the knocks. Their parents were both shocked and scared. One evening, the girls claimed to be communicating with a man called Charles B. Rosnan. The story went that he was murdered in a house by the former owner of the property and buried in the cellar. An excavation team went to work in the cellar, and yes, they did recover bones. They then claimed they was able to work out the murderer was a man called Bell. Now, Bell was the former owner of the property and was cast out of society because of the girls' interpretations. News spread of the girls' gift, and skeptics from far afield would come and try and debunk their claims, but were unsuccessful. They started to travel the US and perform seances in front of large crowds, and eventually saw the birth of spiritualism. At the age of 50, Maggie decided to tell the truth and denounce spiritualism. With the help of the New York Herald, in the New York Opera House, in front of hundreds of people, she claimed it was all made up. She demonstrated how she could make the knocking noise with her knuckles and her feet without being detected. At this point, there was already 8 million spiritualists worldwide. Many claim that Maggie did this because of her alcohol abuse, and that she did it to fund her lifestyle. We will never know.
So as interesting as the story is so far, what about modern day ghost hunting techniques? What about serious paranormal investigations? It's going to take us onto the SPR, which is the Society of Psychical Research.
So the organisation, SPR, or Society for Psychical Research, was created from a discussion between journalist Edmund Roger and the physicist William F. Barrett in autumn 1881. This led to a conference on the 5th and the 6th of January in 1882, and this was held at the British National Association of Spiritualists, and it was at the headquarters. The SPR was officially formed on the 20th of Feb in 1882, with philosopher Henry Sedgwick as its first president. The SPR was the first organisation of its kind in the world, and its stated purpose was be to approach these varied problems without prejudice or prepossession of any kind, and in the same spirit of exact and unimpassioned. Areas that have been hotly debated were hypnotism, transference, mediumship, apparitions, and haunted items. This is when we start to see the birth of proper research and scientific experiments.
To this day, the SPR is still in operation and is followed by many great paranormal scientists. But the next part of the story takes us on to someone who's very controversial but has a very interesting tale. His name was Harry Price, and Harry was a very renowned paranormal researcher and investigator. And this is where you start to see some of the modern day technology begin to be used. Price was a difficult character who had many issues with the SPR.
Harry Price, born the 17th of January in 1881. Harry was a prominent paranormal researcher who gained notoriety by exposing fraudulent spiritualist mediums. He was very well known for his investigations of Borley Rectory in Essex in England, using modern day techniques such as magnetic fields and sound recordings. Price joined the SPR, the Society of Psychical Research, in 1920 and exposed many fake mediums. Price then had many disputes with the SPR, claiming that they covered up for many of the fake mediums that they were close to. He then opened his own version called the National Laboratory of Psychical Research, and this was to rival the SPR. This day, Harry is often criticised by many, and his work is under scrutiny.
So the next part of the story takes us to probably the most successful people in modern day ghost hunting. And it's the stories of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Many claim they were visionaries for modern techniques, and we actually saw factual evidence gathered by these people.
So the Warrens, probably the most famous pair of ghost hunters in history. Many claim that they're visionaries of modern day ghost hunting. Ed was born on September the 7th, 1926 in Connecticut. From the age of 5, Ed experienced paranormal activity in his house. This then became an obsession. At the age of 16, he met a young woman called Lorraine Moran, who had extreme clairvoyance capabilities. After Ed returned from World War II, he became a demonologist. In 1970, the Warrens encountered their first famous case, and it was the Annabelle case. It is said that the spirit of a young lady called Annabelle haunted this doll. The Warrens actually debunked this and claimed it was possessed by a demon. They took this item and placed it in their museum, and it still stands to this day in the Warren Foundation. Their next big case was in 1970 and involved the Perron family. The Perron family moved into a large house in Harrisville in Rhode Island. They soon realised that they weren't alone. They contacted the Warrens, and the Warrens soon concluded that the spirit was of a deceased lady called Bathsheba Sherman, who was an alleged witch who then cursed the location. The Warrens performed an exorcism, and all went quiet. The next case is probably the largest and the most famous of all. On November the 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo claimed his family had been murdered. Ronald later then confessed to their murders. On the 18th of December in 1975, the Watts family moved in after getting a great deal on the home. After hearing the stories, the family decided to have the house blessed by a priest. The priest experienced serious activity while they were there, and the Watts family then suffered unimaginable hauntings. The Warrens were brought in, and they investigated it, and they caught one of the most famous photos of a boy. The Warrens then taught many other paranormal researchers and investigators the modern day techniques. They were the first people of their kind to actually gather evidence of the afterlife. The Warren Foundation still stands, with many artifacts collected in that museum.
So the Warrens truly were an inspirational couple, devoting a lifetime to paranormal research. Still to this day, their techniques are used. They've paved the way for all the modern day ghost hunters, like the big shows you see on TV, like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International, Ghost Adventures, Haunted Collector, and many more. And we all stick to similar principles. To this day, we have no definitive proof of the afterlife. But still, we have no definitive evidence to say that it does not exist. We can catch the most obvious piece of evidence, maybe a photograph, but there's always going to be so much scrutiny behind this because of scientific beliefs. But we'll keep going until it's proved. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe, like and share, and keep coming back for more videos. Thank you.